What up, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of Those Two Dudes. It's that dude, Josh.
That's that dude, Ruben.
Man, we missed a lot over the week. I know it's been a little while. We need to talk about the national championship. Huge game. There was so much hype. Ultimately, it was the two teams that we figured that would be in the national championship. How we got there was irrelevant because it was a crazy route. But either way, what a game it was and what a blowout it was. Not at all what we expected between Baylor and Gonzaga. Josh, I know you were all over that game, man. What'd you see?
Yeah, man. I was pumped for it. First of all, I was pumped for the game. They were the best two teams all year long. We knew that. Unfortunately, they met a team that was just extremely too athletic for them. I think Scott Drew did an excellent job at using his team's strengths against Gonzaga's. I hate to call their athleticism a weakness because they were undefeated and they're one of the best teams. They were probably the second best team in the nation. But Baylor is far more athletic than they are. So it was a strength for Baylor, and Scott Drew did an excellent job of exposing that. And his players did an excellent job of executing and knocking down the shots when they were available. Defensively, Baylor jumped on them, and they didn't have any answers. They couldn't create space, really. They didn't have a player other than Suggs. Suggs did good. He did score 22, 8 of 15, but he didn't get help. Timmy, Kispert each only had 12 points. Most of their players weren't able to stay in front of Baylor's guards. Timmy had an extra difficult time being a big man when they set screens, and they got Timmy guarding one of Baylor's guards. They would usually just blow right by him. Again, also Kispert looked slow-footed, specifically for a wing. Gonzaga wasn't able to get offensive rebounds, so they had 5 total the entire game. Didn't get second looks when they missed shots. Think of the two most important things you need in today's basketball, and that's shooting threes, and that's being able to switch on defense. Baylor was able to do both. Gonzaga couldn't do either. Baylor hit 10 threes, 10 of 23. Gonzaga hit 5 threes for the entire game. I think they only had one for the first 25 minutes or so of the game. Congrats to Scott Drew. Scott Drew led this team out of the basement. Their prior 70, 80, whatever years history since 30s, whenever they were around, they went to a total of 4 NCAA appearances. Since Drew got there in 2003, they've been to 9, would have been 10 if last year didn't get canceled due to COVID. So they would have been to 10 in his 18 years. He's led them to 5 Sweet 16s, 3 Elite Eights, and now a Final Four in the national championship.
So let's start with Baylor. Congrats to Drew. Exactly what you were saying. He turned this doormat of a college basketball team from as late as the early 2000s to, I mean, look, let's face it, they're a powerhouse. They are a powerhouse team. They're a powerhouse conference. Year in and year out, they're going to be a favorite to win the Big 12, just like Kansas. You know, I think Scott Drew has really built something there. I know you're super big on mid-majors, and college basketball mid-majors is a little bit different because it's more of an equal playing field. Look, Gonzaga and Baylor were the 1 and 2 teams all year. They were the 2 best teams. We agree. We know that. They were all year long. So this was a formality, right? They were expected to be in the national championship game. I believe if you put Gonzaga in the Big 10, if you put them in the Big 12, I'd say maybe they lose 2, 3, 4 games, but they still make the national championship. But because of that, because Baylor is in the Big 12, they were so athletic, and they've been able to play against more athletic teams than Gonzaga. They're just not fundamentally sound like Gonzaga is. You know, I've seen the memes out there that this team looks like they work out with the football team. They do. They are huge. Like, they're not just scrubs out there. These are men. They just dominated them, and I think it was a trend. If you saw the game against Houston, they dominated Houston. Houston was a really good team. Gonzaga definitely got exposed going into the national championship game on how bad their defense is because they played UCLA the game before, which was an 11 seed, and they gave up 90 points to them and won off of a buzzer beater 3. And then right off the gates, right, the game started, Baylor jumped up to a 23-6 lead almost immediately. You know, it just wasn't close. It wasn't close. Any run that Gonzaga kind of was having, Baylor just countered right back with their own run. Also, what I took from it was there's some definite NBA players in this game from both sides. So that was good to see, right? These are good squads. Which I know, right? How we talked about how is this going to affect next season? How good is Gonzaga going to be next season? How good is Baylor going to be next season?
It's not all bad for Gonzaga. I know they lost, and I was one of the persons saying if they don't win it this year, win. That was just me thinking in the moment. I mean, they built something sustainable there. Mark Few, he doesn't want to go nowhere. He's happy there. So what they've done there, I don't think is going to end anytime in the near future. And I think they'll still continue to compete for national championships. They're just recently now, they're hitting their peak now. They're having their best recruiting classes now. They had Suggs was like their top recruit ever last year. I think he was number 6 in the top 100, ESPN top 100 or something like that. They only have 2 seniors on the team, Kispert and Cook. Kispert's the only one that played serious minutes. Suggs will probably enter the draft because he's a projected lottery player. So
he's projected like top 3 or 4.
Yeah. 13th player in this year's ESPN Top 100 just committed to them. Hunter, what's his name? Hunter Salas, I believe. He's a 6'4" combo guard, 6'4", 6'5". They're also the favorite to land the number 1 player in ESPN Top 100, Shat Holmgren. I hope I'm saying that right. He's a 7'1" center. He's the number 1 rated player, and he's projected to sign with them. He hasn't done it yet, but projected to. There's a good chance they'll be in the Final Four again next year. So Gonzaga fans, it's not all doom and gloom. So they're looking good going into next year. As far as Baylor goes, congrats on your national championship. You're still going to be a contender because the good thing about Baylor is I don't think Scott Drew wants to go anywhere. Like some of these dudes, like Texas Tech's coach, he jumped and went to Texas. Sometimes they use some of these lower tier major schools, like not the main teams in the state, like Texas or A&M. Baylor's looked at as like a 3rd or 4th type team when you think of Baylor as far as athletic programs go. Sometimes coaches use those programs to go to the biggest programs like UT, North Carolina, Kansas, whatnot. But I don't think Scott Drew's doing that. I think he's happy in Baylor. I think he's going to be there he's already been there 18 years. I don't think he's going anywhere. So they had 3 seniors, only 2 are key. Mark Vital, the big man, he's gone. Marcio Teague, he was one of the leading scorers in the national championship. He's a senior. He's gone. And they're going to also likely lose 2 key juniors. Jared Butler, who was the most outstanding player of the national or the Final Four, and then Davion Mitchell, number 45, one of the other key guards. They were both All-Americans this year. They're likely going to be drafted. I believe Mitchell might be a lottery pick now. One of them two.
Yeah, their stock is rising. Their stock is rising specifically because of the Final Four, what their performance was.
They do have a few players back. The only starter that's expected to return is Flo Thamba, I believe he was a big for them. They also have one of the top 10 recruiting classes in this year's ESPN projected classes. So they have one of the top 10 recruiting classes on top of a few role players coming back. I think they're still going to be good, especially with what Scott. I think he built something that's sustainable. I don't see them competing for a national championship per se next year, but I could see them maybe making it to the second round of NCAA tournament, Sweet 16.
Scott Drew isn't going to go anywhere. Mostly he's not going to go anywhere because Texas just hired Chris Beard. That would be the one school that I would think Scott Drew would go to. And it's not even because of what he can do winning wise. It's because that's where the money is, and that's why Chris Beard went from Texas Tech to Texas, because they're in the same conference and he had more success at Texas Tech. So why make the leap to Texas? Because there's more money. Yeah, they'll be fine. Like you talked about Gonzaga, the recruiting class, they're projected to get the number 1 player. Gonzaga is a shoo-in to win the West Coast Conference, right? They always do. So that's not the issue. The issue is not getting the tournament. The issue is how many losses are you going to have in the season, which generally it's usually around the 1-2 mark. If you can maintain that 1-2 loss mark, you're going to be anywhere from a 1 to like a 3 seed. I think Gonzaga is more on the safe side just because they're generally a shoo-in because they're in a softer conference. But hey, Baylor's still going to be there. One thing we have to talk about, man, is the NFL just announced they're extending their regular season from 16 to 17 games. What a disaster. I hate this on so many levels. Josh and I agree. It's purely greed. It only has to do with money. They're eliminating one preseason game, which honestly, they should have already eliminated a preseason game, but keeping the 16-game season. They're not adding an additional bye week. This is just going to mess everything up on so many levels, right? Because now, moving forward, when you talk about records, you're going to have to kind of throw in an asterisk, right? The the regular season touchdown record, the regular season passing yards record, rushing yard. You know, think about a running back. What if he gets 2,000 yards and then he has that extra game now to pass Eric Dickerson's single season record, which is a big record to have. So, I mean, there's just so many asterisks you're going to have moving forward now. I don't know who's a fan of this other than people that are on the board for the NFL.
So you think from a casual fan perspective, you think, I would think most of them would be for it. More football, right? Like, who doesn't want more football? You think about the records, like you mentioned, like what does that do going forward? Like, you get an extra game every year. So if you play 15 years or whatever, specifically quarterbacks, you're basically adding an extra season to your stats, adding a 17th game. Y'all are always talking about player safety, this and that. Why are we going to put more on wear and tear on these players if our number one concern is player safety? Makes no sense. The only thing I can think of is, like you already mentioned it, is just trying to make more money. There are some goods about it. I read up that they were trying to pose the NFL or get it noticed globally, more games across the seas and
I think they're adding more games in London.
Yeah, they mentioned other countries too.
You know, I think if you're going to do 17, you might as well do 18 and then add an extra bye week in them for them.
I heard eventually it's going to get to 18 one way or another. I don't know if that's 5-10 years down the road or what, but I think that is their long-term goal.
But even I've heard negative things about the games that are in London, you know, about the quality of play and the teams that they're sending over there to play. I know the Jaguars always get the short end of the stick over there. If we're going to have teams represent the NFL, the Jacksonville Jaguars should be the last team that we send over there to play. I think if nothing else, expect more injuries. You know, we'll see how that affects the season. Let us know what y'all think about the NFL 17-game season. Let us know what y'all think about, you know, what college basketball teams are going to be the teams to look out for in the season next year. Let us know what cities or regions y'all want us to cover, man. We're starting to get all over the globe. I know we're looking to do some funky things ourselves, make this a little bit more fun. So let us know what y'all want to see, what y'all want to hear, where y'all want us to cover. Don't forget, like and subscribe. Always push that button. Hit us up. Instagram, YouTube, those two dudes. It's been that dude, Josh.
That's that dude, Ruben.
Catch us later. Like and subscribe. Push the button.
Found it.